Revenge was served the instant he banned me from his Valheim server. I'm a pretty serious gamer, and most online people enjoy having me around as I'm an older gamer and I spend several hours a day in front of my computer playing games. I'm an electrician by trade and by God do I ever have so many stories from my time doing that, but that's not what I'm here for. You don't hear of people taking out revenge on their own stupid selves very often, so this story might be of interest to some of you Reddit people, or even some YouTubers who browse these forums looking for a good story. I just need to start by saying though, this isn't a pro-revenge or nuclear revenge. I was pretty mad this had all gone down the way it did, as I consider myself a bit of a professional and have a tiny YouTube channel where I feature some of my favorite games, so I can't afford this kind of drama. During Christmas, Steamworks puts a lot of their games on sale. When a game I had on my wishlist for some time came up on a 50% sale, I snapped it up in a heartbeat. If you know anything about gaming, especially in the survival genre, then you will have heard of Valheim, and even to this day, exactly 1 month later, I still play it every single day for hours on end. I absolutely love it and it's an incredible entry to the genre. For the price you pay, hundreds of hours of fun, multiplayer, free-form building, and the way the game puts things together and especially the way it allows you to clip objects together, gives you the opportunity to make some really beautiful and awesome looking builds. The game itself is very hard and overwhelming for a new player, but that's honestly half the fun. Anyway, getting back on the rails here, let's talk about what happened. But before I do that, I need to set up the scenario of how single player and multiplayer works in Valheim. You establish yourself a character, or toon, if you know anything about MMOs. And then you set up the parameters of the world you want to play in, and launch the game. If you are a new player, this all happens pretty much seamlessly, by the game wanting you to have your first character, and then it jumps straight into the world parameters, and then launches, creating both your first character and your first world. Everything you do in your world obviously stays in your world. In other words, if you build something in your world, you can't just copy it over into someone else's world. It ensures that everyone does their part in building their world the way it should be built, and people put the time in to do what needs to be done. There are mods that allow build copying and many other things, of course, but by default you can't really transfer world-type things into another world. What you can do however is put a bunch of gear on your character and when you jump into someone else's world, someone who is hosting a server let's say, you can bring your gear with you. And it goes without saying that as you grind your way through the game, things get way more expensive, resource intensive, and if you have a good group of people working with you, can take multiple people several hours, if not days, to harvest the resources needed to not only build the armor, but then upgrade the hell out of it. All the tools you use in your playthrough can also be built and upgraded using new materials, yielding stronger tools and weapons. One more thing I must say before I move on here is that Valheim spoiler alert is broken up into ages. The starting age you are wearing leather gear and running wood and stone tools, including your weapons. You spend your time looking for food and hunting for leather, chopping trees and trying your best to upgrade your gear and stockpile food. Then the next age introduces you to mining, and the age after that gives you better ore to work with, while at the same time dramatically increasing the difficulty of the game. Then the ages move forward and get hard, and harder, while your gear gets more and more powerful and rewarding to yield. I have not gotten past the third age and that puts me at about early mid-game, kinda well past the first couple of ages where you start to get good and hone in your builds, your gear, and your playstyle. When I got the game I played for a couple days, and I was still in the first age, at the tail end. I had just beaten the first boss and gotten the pickaxe, and I was just starting to harvest some ore to make my first tool of the second age. I had built a fairly strong beginner's stronghold, and I started to feel the itch to share my build skills. This isn't my first building type game, and being an older gamer, I know a hell of a lot about tactical strategy and how things are done. I started looking around on Reddit for a server to play on and found one, who seemed to be pretty close to where I was at in the game. Jumping on this guy's server was a no-brainer. After talking with him for a bit it was clear that he was very experienced with the game and he definitely liked my build style. He went on and on about how he's not a builder, and so he went out of his way to find someone who was purely only a builder. We will call this guy douchebag in question, or DIQ for short. His builder, who obviously I cannot name, and also wouldn't want to, as I found her to be very sweet, I will call Kitty. She definitely has a thing for cats and it shows in her style. DIQ and Kitty had been running the server for about 7 weeks when I came on. As the dedicated builder she started them off with a small camp near the initial spawn zone, and then moved on to building a little bit of a fort, nothing major. Just a big house with one big huge room, some sectioned off areas for chests and beds. He then went to show me his main settlement. It consisted of 3 very large buildings that all looked very beautiful, but were completely void and empty inside. Huge buildings with huge rooms, lots of architecture, but that stuff doesn't turn my crank at all. I like gritty builds, things that are useful. My strategy in any survival game is to build in a compact manner, to make things highly efficient. Not to say I don't build big, but when I design my builds, I like to make sure every single inch of the build serves a purpose, has a use, and is easy to access. Looking at this gigantic build she had started made my heart sink. I was looking at a gargantuan amount of time to get the build up to snuff, to make it not only look pretty, but to make it functional. The buildings were all spread very far apart, to make you have to spend time running between them. Running between your buildings in Valheim is definitely a part of the game, but when you have to spend minutes at a time running between all the buildings just to accomplish a simple task, means you are then not actually playing the game, and you are wasting vast amounts of time to get things done. Nothing was streamlined, things were scattered everywhere, and it hurt not only my game experience, but the experience of everyone else, or anyone else that joined the server. The town was like a giant mud pit, on a big huge slope, full of deep potholes everywhere. You could hardly run a cart through there without it flipping over, it was that bad. The potholes would make it rock back and forth and it would get unbalanced and flip on you. Not good, so I spent my entire Christmas, Boxing Day, and the rest of that week, and into the weekend, flattening everything out, mining stone and wood, so that I could terraform the entire space into a workable hometown. I gotta say it was actually quite beautiful after all that time spent. I built myself a house with a deck, and a chest room, with a small kitchen, and all the services I would need. But here's where the red flags started going up. DIQ would come on rarely, and I didn't expect them to play all that much considering it was Christmas etc. But he WOULD come on while I was trying to get the hometown upgraded, looking nice, functional, and efficient, and complained that no one helped him with anything. He would ramble on about how he wanted to advance the game and all everyone ever did was build. He kinda pointed the finger at me, since honestly there were only the 3 of us on the server at the time, and his dedicated builder was that. Strictly a builder and nothing else. And let's talk about Kitty for a second here too. I never, ever, saw her log in through the entire Christmas season, except for at the very end, where at 2 AM on the following Saturday morning, she finally made a show of presence, where I started chatting with her and she didn't actually do anything. She took me to her personal server where she had her main builds, and I asked why she is never on, or after 5 days of 14 hours a day of play for me, had I never seen her before. She said she was doing other things, and I asked, Christmas things? She said no, just other things. I said, oh, in other words, you've got builder's burnout. She offered no reply. Later that morning, after getting some sleep, I logged back in and I looked at what I had done. I had spent about 70 hours over the course of the 5 days playing, only to realize I had not progressed, not done anything noteworthy. I felt like I was playing a single-player world, except in this case I was building something for someone else's benefit, not my own. I felt lost, and DIQ was pushing me to go into territories that were way beyond my skill set. I had also unlocked a metric ton of crap that I had no idea what to do with, since as you gain new materials to work with, the game updates you with new crafting recipes. I had unlocked easily over 50 new things that I had no idea what to do with, and no idea where the resources came from. DIQ was getting short as I was offering no help and it seemed I didn't want to do anything except finish Kitty's build, to which she was absolutely never online to do anything with. So I stepped out of the multiplayer server, and started a new single-player world. I deleted everything except my character. I had nothing on me, no gear, no equipment, nothing. I was naked, and honestly, I didn't even want to use that tune for a single-player world anyway. I wanted him to be my multiplayer guy, so I even started a new tune. I jumped back in, and with renewed vigor, knowledge, and lust to kick some, I was salivating at the chance to do it all over again, the proper way. It didn't take long before DIQ noticed I was gone and started asking questions. He was disappointed but understood, and I insisted I was too green to join his game where he was at, and that I didn't want to progress. In reality, I didn't know how to do anything he needed me to do. Not even really mine. I had picked at a few rocks before joining his server, and amassed enough material to build my first metal axe, but large-scale mining operations were totally alien to me. And this is something he was upset that I wasn't taking part in, I was kinda lost in the progression of the game. It was too much too soon, and all I could do to feel helpful was retreat back into building, because honestly it desperately needed to be done and it's something I'm obviously decent with. So I left and did my own thing. And oh boy, it was glorious. I founded my first town on the shores of the ocean, and quickly moved north to establish an outpost, to get into the next biome. I built everything up, stockpiling things like food and raw resources, because I knew that in the next age of my run I would not have much time for hunting and swinging tools. I would be mostly exploring and building, depleting my resources. I got through the second age this way, and built a very nice first outpost, and used that to ship resources back to my main town, built up my main town, and then finished the second age. Now into the third age, and after about 10 days of solid play time, I reached out to DIQ and told him I might be ready. I had delved into a couple of crypts and got the new resource, had made some armor and a good sword and shield, and felt I was ready to come back in with my new character. So I did just that, and after 10 days of being gone, nothing had been done to the town. There was no chest room, no proper place to put down some beds, there was absolutely nothing new built, and resources were moderately stockpiled. Well, so much for Kitty to be this big, crazy builder who's super, and does all these massive builds. She had spent the last couple of weeks playing other games and had no interest in Deke's world. DIQ on the other hand had not advanced the world at all. He claimed he was waiting for me to come back on, that he wanted to play the game with other people, so while he waited he decided to work on some remote cabin somewhere in the world, built entirely out of core wood beams. Think. Log cabin. It looked pretty cool, I won't lie, and I do feel 50-50 on his claim. He may very well have been waiting for not necessarily me, but anyone else to join the server, lest he felt like he was playing the game solo. So I get on and guess what? Nothing. He couldn't be bothered. I notified him on Discord and nothing. Even the next day when he finally logged on, he was only on for a few minutes and then left. Claimed his family was around and he might spend a few minutes on. And that also was true. But there's something about DIQ you need to know. He's constantly drunk, and I mean constantly. Every single day I ever logged into that server, he said, "I'm pounding drinks, hope you guys don't mind." So yeah, DIQ had a drinking problem, and you could tell all the different stages of his drunkenness. Getting into the sauce. Informational, precise, structured. Well into the sauce. Super emotional, sappy, slobbery, feelin' the love, annoying. Hungover. Angry, short, curt, belligerent, insulting. It didn't take me long of being back, and looking at the whole situation, to realize I needed to not work on the base and instead upgrade my own personal situation. So I dug out the basement of my house and went to do some major upgrades on my chest area, and make things more comfortable for myself. In the meantime, he was talking about now finishing up with this age and defeating the boss for it, and moving on to the next. I was fully on board, but again, I had just gotten into the current age on my single-player world when I jumped over to this one with my new toon. I told him I needed to craft some more gear with the current material and upgrade my armor so that in the next biome, I wouldn't die in an instant to all the threats around. He grumbled and didn't like this. In his mind, it was a repeat of last time, when I first logged in, and he got all huffy with me asking questions about my gear. I was only 3 days into the game at that point. Going backwards to the first 24 hours I spent on Deke's server, I was obviously full of questions and needed guidance on better gear. He was short and basically barked at me to figure it out and make my own gear. He also said, use the resources in the base. In his mind, he was thinking I might upgrade my leather armor, the stuff available in the first biome. But alas, with all the new crap that had unlocked for me, I found some of the material of the then second biome as several hundred ingots in a chest, and ate up a bunch of it, making my first set of gear, complete with upgrades, tools, weapons. That was when I first came to his server, and I had left it all in a chest when I stopped playing on his server with my first toon. Now though, it was age 3, not age 2, and in the last 10 days nothing had really been done, and so with the new material being harder to extract, he didn't have much of it. Thankfully during the 10 days I was gone, he managed to find another player who was a lot more experienced than me, and seemed to understand some things. I'll call him, new guy. He offered to help me farm the newest material so I could make better gear. Okay, awesome, we did just that, and in the middle of it, guess who shows up and makes it his thing, like he's the champion. He wouldn't miss out 2 other people working together to get something done and having fun, so he joins in. We harvested resources for about 4 hours and went through multiple crypts. We basically stripped an entire area dry in our search for resources. We then sailed it all back to home base where we smelted it all into ingots. And all the while, it was DIQ and his show. He couldn't have things happening where people were on his server having fun, without them being under his thumb. I logged off for the night and came back on the next morning. The ore had all been smelted by new guy, and was sitting in a chest as ingots, about 300 of them. Which by all standards in this age, was several hours of work for multiple people. I upgraded all of my armor, my weapons and tools, and even crafted a couple new tools, in a near-perfect flashback of when I first joined his server and ate up a ton of second-age ingots to make full sets of armor and tools. Now though it was a whole new set of armor and tools, the next resource had been mined, and the ingots were sitting there, waiting to be used by me to get myself up to par. I ate up 270 out of 300 ingots. I was now fully upgraded and was all geared up and ready for the next biome. I got to work building the addition to my house, and spent the rest of the night doing that, until it was bedtime. I had to work the next day and couldn't log in, but I got on Steam chat on my phone during my first break and started trying to coordinate our efforts. DIQ was extremely hungover and was also at work, so he was pretty much snappy and angry and also sick and tired. I wanted to know what our plan was. I spent 5 days at 14 hours a day initially, and then about another 3 days working on his damn hometown. We are talking a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday, of sitting in front of the computer building his town. That's at least another 25 hours spent on this town. We are not up to nearly 100 hours in total trying to build his hometown. I didn't want to then start spreading out on the map to the next biome, only to build yet another gigantic, empty, time-consuming build. I wanted to see hometown completed and upgraded. The buildings, especially the pig farm, needed a lot of work, and we needed a better storage system. I had talked to DIQ about maybe building a castle or something somewhere, maybe as an outpost, and continuing to work and live out of our hometown. It was in a good location and had easy access to the rest of the map. And this is where things got super hostile. He stated that I was not to build any outposts of any kind. Kitty was going to do it. He wanted her as the builder. And I'm not a fan of her build style. While her stuff is pretty, unfortunately this is not Minecraft. In Minecraft it's perfectly fine to build huge massive things that don't have any value. They look nice but don't do anything. You can't do that in Valheim though. I mean, you can, but it's incredibly inefficient to those who are actually trying to play and beat the game, like we were. You also need the builds to function as active fortifications, as NPC invasions are a thing in this game. I made it clear that I didn't want to see the server waste a bunch of time and resources building this giant monstrosity that's only half complete, only to have me come by and try to work with what she's done, to make her stuff more functional, while she goes off and plays other games. Basically, what I was trying to tell him, was that I didn't want to drop another 75+ hours working on someone's gigantic build to try and get it completed, so that we can then actually use it and move on. I wanted to do some exploring, too, and get out there, harvest resources, dive into crypts, do the things. But he was absolutely unwilling to help me build at all, whatsoever. He only wanted to do combat and explore, and while he was out there doing that, the builders were at home tending the animals, the gardens, etc. He would come back to camp and take all the resources out, and then go out exploring again, expecting us, or more specifically me, to keep him going. In the meantime, he would complain that we aren't doing enough to help him progress the game. So now we are on Discord, having this conversation, with me trying to keep the builds smaller, while more meaningful and efficient. Still make nice builds, but not ones that are only designed to look nice on the outside, while having absolutely nothing on the inside, and completely vulnerable to attack, as well as massive and empty. I didn't want to be the one to have to spend hours and hours shoring up defenses, harvesting resources, etc., only to just get to the point where I can finally play, and then DIQ goes ahead and advances to the next stage. But he wasn't having any of it, me. So I was wondering if we can maybe put some build restrictions on the next thing we build. DIQ. I already told you. We aren't putting in any build restrictions, me. But I feel it would be a lot more efficient if we put our efforts into upgrading the main town, and then just build outposts in the biomes where we need them. DIQ. I told you. No build restrictions, and you better check your attitude. Whose server do you think it is? Mine or yours? Me. I'm not questioning whose server it is, but I'm just saying, I spent a huge amount of time upgrading hometown, only for us to completely abandon it and move on. DIQ. We are building a new town in the mountains, and there will be no restrictions. Me. Look, I get it, but Kitty seems to build only huge, vast builds and she hasn't even finished any of them yet. I've been the one putting the time in to make it functional, and there's still a ton more work to do on it. DIQ. Listen, you have what, 200 hours in the game? I have 1,200 hours. Do you think I care about your opinion? I'm not going to tell Kitty how to build. And that's final. Me. I mean, would you like to see my resume? Now, keep something in mind here. I'm 44 years old and spent the majority of my adult life in construction. I've been involved with every stage from digging out footings, to laying rebar and pouring cement, to building and erecting walls, doing electrical, HVAC, job site management, supply and material management, first aid and lead hand, safety officer, you get the idea. I've also been to college and taken network administration, so I know how to build computers and servers and I have an understanding of technology in general. Not to mention I've been gaming since 1991, so if you really want to play it that way, you could say I've been a gamer for 33 years, more years than DIQ has even been alive, at 27 years old. So that I've been playing for 1,200 hours doesn't wow me at all. At one point I put in 13,000 hours playing Minecraft alone, building spaceships and space stations on a Movecraft server. I think I know my crap when it comes to building and survival. I'm also a real-world survival prepper. Yeah, the resume is pretty riff with things you would want from someone in a survival game. A couple of minutes goes by in the chat. DIQ hasn't said anything more. Me. Okay, how about this then? I will work on my house in main town, build the chest room in my basement, and while Kitty is doing the next big build, I will also build something for myself in that region, something small. Like a tower maybe. DIQ. You won't be building anything. Me. Oh, why? DIQ. Because I'm banning you. Suddenly, the server in my Discord server list disappeared and just like that, I was gone. I was like, whoa, I'm trying to find solutions here. I've been nothing but helpful, dumped my time into his server, and looking for solutions moving forward, so that I don't have to utterly waste my time on an abandoned build and make it so that I can actually enjoy exploration and combat, without spending immense amount of time running around a poorly put together, gigantic main camp, every time we move to a new biome. So I reached out to him in private to try to explain my stance a little, and tell him I'm feeling kinda used, and that I don't really want to spend all of my time building, but that in doing so we all need to agree on just how much of our time and effort should be spent doing that. Still being diplomatic and trying to do what's best for the server. Me. Dude, just hold on here. Let me explain. DIQ. You just don't know when to shut the FCK up, do you? Me. Let me explain, man. And just like that, he blocked me. I felt like I had just been violated. The kind of violation that happens when your pants are down. I was infuriated. I felt used. And the entire time I was on the server building for this guy, all I mostly ever got was the hostility of him being hung over. He was rarely on at night as he was a total drunk, was basically busy getting wasted at night. He would log on for 20 minutes or half an hour and then log out, and we wouldn't see him till the next day. On weekends he would log in hungover and would get downright insulting with his behavior. How can I get back at him? He's banned me from the server, blocked me from Discord, wrote a smaller post regarding his server on the Reddit forum I found him on. They wouldn't allow me to submit the post, so I did the best I could do. I shrugged it off, and jumped back into my single-player world. I started harvesting resources, and went to the areas where I could find the current level ores to harvest. And that's when I realized something. The gear I had soaked up nearly 300 ingots of current biome material, costing 3 people about 4 hours of steady gameplay, was still on my toon. I had all the armor, all the tools except one. I had all of my things that I made and purchased from the vendors in-game. My guy was utterly jacked, as I basically saved myself a ton of headache by being on the server for those 3 days. I had gutted his supply, made a bunch of food. My toon basically had all the goods on him, so I happily continued on with my playthrough, with max upgraded everything, at the expense of DIQ and new guys' efforts. It's not pro or nuclear revenge, it's fairly petty, but it's good enough that I feel satisfied with the result. I can only imagine the look on his face when he went to open his ingot chest only to realize that over 250 units of ingots were gone, just like that, and all that work they put in was for nothing. Serves him right. I'm sure they've moved on and replenished their supply. But then again, so have I. Kitty is probably still working on a half-built main camp, that's non-functional. Good on them. I too am building a mega structure, invincible, and full of medieval-style fortifications, so as to shoot the enemy from above, a safe distance away. I'm happy with the progress of my game, and I'm very much addicted to it. I've since met a group of professional gamers much like myself, and while I'm very tempted to jump in and start rolling with them, I just don't want to abandon what I've built. My character and the world he's in have gone through the fires, and are forged of steel. I'm a total badass in my own game, and you know what, I'm happy to keep it that way. Sorry for the long read, but I hope some YouTuber out there covers this story. I would love to hear someone react to the events here. Also, if you want to know Deek's Reddit gaming handle, shoot me a private message. Online handles are not exactly what I consider sensitive information, so I'm happy to share. Thanks for sticking with this story till the end, good luck, and never compromise WH. At you think is right for some a-hole and their dog's T opinions.